So what is the topic for today?
Yeah, so portals. Um, so portals. So I know we briefly talk about portal jumping. So I so like I just so you know, I don't think it's strange that you're on and Paige is on and then and the other people are
Mm-hmm.
okay. So like I said, so today I would like to talk about portals um, and going through portals. And I think because I was talking to Veronica and I said, hey, like this is something that I've been experiencing, and so and how like can you even do you even know when you go through these portals? You know, so that was one of the things because I think I've been going through them, but I never noticed, and then I started noticing, and it's funny, like so the way I noticed was like really traumatic and like really crazy. So I had gone to Costa Rica, and had like a whole thing like that was when Savon decided like we were going to decide, okay, are you gonna work for me? Like, are you gonna like seriously like is it gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm volunteering, or am I like gonna be your assistant real? So it was like, okay, so then you have to come. Like, so I went to Costa Rica, and so and then when I went there, it was like we really never had a conversation. So it was fine, we did good, like, and I was still like making up my mind, whatever. And I said, okay, we're gonna go home. So maybe I had plans to come back again. And so now I'm going home. His wife drove me to the airport, and I got to in the plane. I'm a little claustrophobic when it comes to getting an airplane. It was fine. Got an airplane, and the airplane's about to take off, and it's like we're going down the runway, going down the runway. It's about to fly, and then you hear, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I mean, I felt the hit, and I know it was like when the plane is about speeding, it's speeding and it's about to just take off. And that's when something went into the engine. And basically, so now the plane's grounded, you could smell smoke, and like so they're like, everybody come down. And I'm just like, and then of course, like the people next to me are like telling what's happening, and I'm just like, I don't want to know because I sort of know, and like but you don't want to know. And so I'm like, can I have an aspirin or like whatever head thing that you got for headaches? And then here I am sitting in the back. I said, this has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with me. Like I'm like literally, I'm like, this has nothing to do with me. But it's a very traumatic experience. Of course, like now, they have the ambulance come, the fire trucks, and then it's like, okay, now they disembarking the airplane, and then we go out, and then you could see that the engine's basically broken, and you know so it's like a bird flew in the plane and broke the engine. You could smell the smoke, see the smoke. It's like the plane is done. And so here I am on the. I don't know. I don't even remember if I took a picture. I may have taken a picture of an tarmac. Very so like I said, very traumatic. And so I'm like telling someone, "This is what happened to me." He's like, "Uh-huh." And I'm like, "Okay," like not explaining. But as I'm in the airport, I literally feel this difference in like just this difference. And I panicked. And I'm in the airport. I'm like, I want to go home. I'm like, I have to go home. I'm like, and I could feel it in my head. I could feel it in the people. And I remember distinctly trying to. It felt like I was disconnecting from something, and and I was afraid because my son was in the United States, and all of a sudden it was like even the words United States was like a thing, like it wasn't easy coming out of my mouth, like the so I just felt the something closing, between me and something else, and so I'm like, I think at that time I was speaking to Wendy, one of the members of our tribe, and she was helping me trying to get airplane back to the US. I was like, I just have to travel today. I just need to go home today. And so I ended up having to go to Texas, and that was weird. I also had felt that that was weird. And then so then I got booked to a later flight, I think for like a 1 o'clock flight or something like that. And then to back to the US, and I had to pass through Texas, and I felt there was something also about that, you know, and so, came home, and And for me, like it was very surreal the whole trip, you know, because I remember even during like the thing we had the meditation. There was a Wednesday night, so we had meditation. I said to Mark, I was like, I need you. You know what I mean? Um, so that was like the first time I really consciously like knew something was up, you know. Um, and then of course when I went across the country, it was like all over the place. And I noticed them, I knew them, I saw them, and we went to many. And you know, Mark kept saying, "Hey, this is a one-way trip. You know, we go forward." And so, and I know, like, so that I mean, going across the country was like my big one. You know, in terms of like having to travel the whole of the United States back and forth. Um, and then but then now it's like, oh wow, these happen all the time, you know. And you know, so how do you explain this to people? And like, is it a real thing? You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, you feel it, you know, the difference in the world as you traverse it, you know. Because I'm still talking to, you know, my mom and my son and, you know, my cousin. Like, I'm still talking to them. I came back to the same house, you know, but I know it's not.
Mhm. It's like for me, it's just a shift. It's a quick shift. And then I don't know if I'm like in and out where, I'm on in this reality and I'm dealing with the people and things are this way. And then I know when I shift and I'm still dealing with the same people, but it's just completely different experience. And then I'll know when I shift back. It's like like the railroad tracks are crossing, but then I come back to it too. So I don't, it's so frequent. So mine isn't always just, I'm going through a portal and then that's just it. Mine is more frequent where I'm in and out and in and out. And maybe because I travel so much too, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But I feel the shift. I know when it happens. I know now. And I guess I know because I didn't know at first. And then I started to pay attention, like, what is going on? But it's like a completely different experience, but with the same characters, the same, me. Some of my thoughts are different. Some things are different about me, but I'll shift in and out. So I don't know if you notice any of that when how you say you came back to the same house, you're still dealing with the same people, but does the experience there seem different?
The experience seemed different. Like
Mm-hmm.
the house actually, I know I came back to the same house, but the house still felt different.
Mm-hmm.
It did feel different. And and there's shift. Well, actually, one of my biggest shifts, which is good. My mother's laughing, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so she's lighter
Mm-hmm.
because you know she's been grieving.
Mm-hmm.
It was very heavy, and I came here and she's way lighter. You know, so I
Right.
definitely see the difference in her. Um, and it's a huge difference, you know, for the from the past few months. So definitely feel the energy, you know. That
And another thing that I experience when I know that I've shifted are super long deja vus, like 10 or 15 minutes. And I know what's coming, I know what's going to happen. And maybe because it just truly happened recently, I don't know, or I experienced it, but I think I might have told you how I was outside on my porch in California and my son was out there and I was able to tell him everything that was about to happen. What color car was driving by? What was the plane that was coming through? I was able to tell him everything before it happened. Like, okay, this is about to happen. And it was the weirdest thing, but it was going on for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I noticed that because I started to pay attention when I would shift in and out of like what's going on. Sorry, that was like a bee or something. What's going on when that happens, and that is one thing, like the super long deja vus. If you do you experience that?
um no, I haven't been able to do it that way. It's more just the sensation of the people. in the place, and that I'm feeling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and then of course, like right now I don't do a lot of interaction with real people
Right.
as well, meaning in terms of like in the physical. So it becomes like where I mean that's one of the things that I find lately is that me and interacting with physical beings is not a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
like it's very and it's because they're very heavy, you know. So for me to be in the same space with other people, it I feel it a lot. So I do
Mm-hmm.
not want to be in a space with other people, you know. So except for my son, of course, like which is
Mm-hmm.
he's way lighter. Um, I tend not even to feel him around me, but others you can feel right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say like so when they've changed or I notice right away. You know?
Yeah. I think too, when that happens, it gives me the opportunity to alter things and to alter the outcome of things and just to change some things. So, I mean, I just became aware of it and I started jotting things down. But I was saying, you know what, let me try to do this next time, or let me try to do this when it happens. So just to see, what'll happen with it. But then I was a little, I don't know, I don't want to say fearful because I wasn't scared to do it, but it just made me think, well, what if I don't come back to, where I was, and maybe if I don't, I wasn't supposed to. I don't know.
See what you just said, that's been my issue of like being that fear of like not coming back and that's why I said like I travel with my son. I was like I'm not going anywhere without him. um so it's been but then I know like it sort of doesn't matter, so I'm tricking myself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, like come on, higher self, slow it down.
But it's hard with children, I think, because we're so connected to them.
Yeah,
And, that detachment is really hard. It's hard.
yeah,
Are you there?
yeah.
Okay, we're there. Okay, so I struggle with it with Tyler, maybe because I'm 15 years in, and not with Zane because he's only 3. But it's just a completely different type of attachment where I'm not fearful of not making it back to him or something. Or I don't know. I have a lot of confidence that he'll be okay without me. But then I fear for Tyler, like maybe he won't be if I'm not there, which I know that that's me tricking myself too. So that's why I tell you all the time, like I'm connected to everything but attached to nothing, but I am attached to Tyler. So I know that that's something that I have to work on and deal with myself for me to be able to confidently leave, because maybe I'm supposed to switch and do something completely different and go on a completely different path. And I'm keeping myself from doing that because I've tricked my brain into thinking that I need to be in this reality for my child. And that's simply not the case.
And it's so funny with having to deal with this. It's like this time I sort of knew that there were some people that would not be in my life. And it was like, it was so weird. Like, I knew it. So as it was happening, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not surprised. And of course, you still hurt. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? But at the same time, it was no surprise because I had felt the tug and the pull away um, and the change coming. And um, but like you, it's like it's more the feeling, not just the absolute. Okay, here I can change this.
Mhm.
So far, it's really like more okay. I'm noticing, and frankly, now that I notice it, I'm like, oh, now I can go back and see all the different times that it happened.
Mhm.
So it's not something new. It's just more me being in the awareness of it, and that's very interesting. Well, how many times in my life that's the next question. How many times in our lives do we shift worlds and realities? And it's not even about the awareness of it. It's like, well, is that what we do anyway? Like, so that's like my question is like, you know and are we supposed to notice? Is there something, you know, to noticing and not noticing? This is a very real thing happening within the reality where you know, and also can I really, which is one of the things I feel is like what the world that I was in 3 weeks ago is not, you know, it's not. So um yeah, so yeah, and it is good, like, so can I move toward like a better future that, you know, consciously, basically, you know, or what I think is a better future, because I remember coming into the space where it was like, okay, when I went from California to New Jersey, it was like, oh, because I remember like one time we were looking at the map, we had drawn the map to the direction route, and then as I'm doing that, the map flipped on me and everything was like upside down, and I was like, holy crap, and I quickly snapped the picture of it, and and then of course it flipped back, but when it flipped, it flipped and everything was upside down, but all of the names were upside up, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, so everything was like backwards. um to look to see the map that way was like, oh, like, you know, it's my phone making, like, you know, but at the same time, like, I remember taking the picture and I was like, oh wow, like, is this how it truly is, or does it even matter? But anyway, just to say, like, you know, in shifting the realities, it's like, you know, I think my first recollection was when I was like 7 years old, and um and then feeling really spaced out, like, you know, where am I type of,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like even out of body, where it's like, okay, it's strange, I'm looking at people and they look strange, and you know, the feeling of where I wasn't stable, you know. um but then I just thought it was maybe more like a trauma, because I had just gotten the big news that my mom, actually I didn't get the news yet. It was funny, like, so I didn't know the news yet, but as I was going home, I had felt there was a shift and there was a change. And I ended up, like, I was very young, I ended up taking like the wrong bus. So instead of taking the bus home, I took the bus to the airport. And so that was very interesting because my mother was leaving, so she went to the airport to leave, you know. But my accidental of taking the wrong bus, like, you know, it wasn't until I got to the airport, it was the last stop, that, you know, the driver said, hey, it's the last stop. I'm like, you know, we're not home yet. And he's like, well, no, you took the wrong bus, like, you know, explaining where I was going. And then so now I had to take another bus back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that feeling, that sensation is like that. That's what I'm reminded of whenever I, like, you know, hey, here's the shift, you know. So um, so it's like, well, how many times in our lives do we do this, you know? And is it, how, you know, can you control it, you know?
I think it happens often. I think it's just the awareness is not there. And I think it is something that we should be aware of. Um, but it's more or less, are you tapped in enough to pay attention to be aware of it, where you know that it's coming? And I think it is something that you should be able to control. Um, but I think you have to get to the point where you can. But I feel like it's happened to me all growing up. Like I have a lot of memories, like what you just described as well, just from early elementary school on, you know, where I began to pay attention, and, you know, you just remember the feeling. And I think that's what you said. So when it happens and you know, oh, I felt this is familiar. I felt this before,
Mhm.
and this is what was going on when I felt it. And then, you know, now that we have words and knowledge and experience to be able to explain it, it makes more sense. It comes together. It's almost like, and this is a little off, but when Tyler was in preschool, he couldn't really talk, but I sent him to a Montessori school. He could talk enough, but not enough. Just he had some words, and he wasn't able to articulate what was going on there or tell me exactly how his day was or the experiences he was having. And I ended up pulling him out, but he started speaking really well. And after he learned how to talk, he was telling me what was going on then, because now he had words for it. and he was able to put it together. So it was like, okay, well, this happened at this school, and this when I was playing with this, and he would give me these little stories or, you know, scenarios of what was going on, but he just now had words for it and he could explain it to me, as opposed to when he couldn't talk, it was going on and he had no way of explaining it to me, if that makes sense to you.
No, definitely.
Okay.
So
But go ahead.
Oh yeah, okay. Y'all asking for my take or?
yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, timeline jumping indeed. You know, when you know this time around, when I traveled, I didn't expect to jump through, you know, a portal physically and metaphysically. You know, it just happened. You know, and it was so interesting because I realized like, whoa, you know, higher self knew, you know, everything and the timing of everything and how I needed to be somewhere at once because, yeah, like the space that I was holding, I would want to say, at the time was very necessary. And so it was just interesting to see that. And I'll give you an example too, before I get into my recent travels. I'll give you an example too, going back to your Costa Rica experience. When I went to Costa Rica, it was really interesting. It was so interesting. So much was going on. And, you know, when I got there, it was interesting because I didn't know any Spanish. I didn't do a lot of research on the airport, Capos. I just thought, okay, you know, it's gonna be an airport there in the city, and it was a shack in a small plane. Some small planes there. There was a security guard, and there was an attendant there, and then there was the shack, and then it was like, yeah, this is the airport. So like, whoa! And when I got to the plane, first of all, when I got to the plane in San Jose, I was like, we get on this small plane? Wait. I've seen some stuff happen with these small ones. I don't know. So I get on there, I'm hopping up and down, make sure that the weight is not, you know what I mean, too heavy. I'm like, oh no, it's not going down like this. So, you know, I'm seeing the most beautiful views and everything of my life. I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And I get to the airport, nobody's there. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I need a ride. You know what I mean? Like, I need a ride. I don't speak any Spanish. This guy is charging me $100 to drive me 30 miles. What to do? And I can't communicate with him. So that was interesting about, okay, just staying present and not worrying too much, making sure that it'll all get taken care of and things like that. And so that happened. But just the entire time there was so healing. It was like unheard of, the healing that I experienced just being in the jungle and all these different things and being with tribe. It was like a whole new thing. Like, and even then I was jumping into a portal with tribe too. It was like, whoa, we're traveling and doing so much. And I remember coming back, and I met my family too, so that was just really like, whoa, that was icing on the cake. And then I remember coming back, and it was as if I brought the sun back, because when I left, it was man, it was crazy. I thought about bringing my North Face on the plane to Costa Rica because it was so cold here in Chicago. I was like, I want to bring my jacket because it's even cold to step outside the car to go in the airport. So when I came back, the weather was just beautiful. The sun was shining. And I told Imani about this. I was like, it feels as if I brought the sun back. And he was like, yeah, you might have, you know. And the glow that I had there and brought back, I was able to produce so much stuff. I was able to produce a ton of different things. And it was as if my world here had totally changed. It was a brand new world. And COVID had just hit. So it was like I was tired of my job. I was tired of a lot of stuff. And I just like, oh, you ain't gotta go no more. Whoa, I don't have to go no more. So it was just a lot of it was a lot of great things that happened, you know, after I came back from there. So I definitely knew I jumped, you know, into a portal. You know, definitely. It was so much had happened, and I was able to produce so much, and I took some of that energy and was able to do a lot with it, um, and create a lot of things. And so, you know, traveling and portal jumping is definitely a thing, definitely. um, and even going back to this experience that I just had, it was a lot more blatant that I definitely was going through a portal and timeline jumping. Like I was seeing like, whoa, this is what's happened or what is happening right now. And, you know, I'm also seeing loops run, like real life loops being ran. And, you know, I'm like, okay, it's time to break this loop, time to break this cycle, time to do this, time to do that. Um, this travel is more so about um, work, you know, like really doing life's work, you know, especially with my family, just doing a lot of life's work, or intentional work with them. And now I'm back in Chicago and I'm like, this is a different world. It's a different world. It's a different world. Like, whoa, you know, so I'll definitely see, I'll definitely have more of an insight as to how different this world is when I step outside tomorrow and feel a lot more of it. But it's a uh, totally different world, you know, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
It was so funny. Um, so like, okay, I'm gonna go on a quick vacation, and then I was laughing with Jeff. I said, hey, we're just gonna go like, South Jersey. It just so happened we're like, oh no, the Airbnb we saw is just like it's like in Delaware. I was like, okay, and then when I looked at the map, I was like, oh, this is like right across from Jersey. Really beautiful, and maybe that's where we're supposed to be. So of course I booked, and then I was like, oh, so as we're driving, and I'm joking, I'm like, oh, we know we don't. It's always a one-way trip. As we're driving now, we pass this bridge, and I'm like, holy crap! And Jeff said, stop saying that. I'm like, but you don't understand. It's a golden bridge, like literally, literally like a golden bridge with the gold arch, and it was like crazy, and it's a beautiful bridge, and we're jumping water. That's like, Jeff, we're jumping water. It's like, yeah, it's a golden bridge jumping water. And so we get to this trip, and it's really nice and beautiful. And as we're coming back, I was like, oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely different, because we're passing over the bridge again, and then I see it, and I'm like, not only did we switch timeline, but we actually, even though we were going so close, I felt we went pretty far in terms of, and also jumped twice on this trip, and because of the bridge. I was like, holy crap, you know. Um, and it was good to actually see this landmark and know and notice it and be like, okay, this is what this is for what it is. Because I know, like, on our trip across the US, there was a lot of tunnels that we went through. So we're able to be like, oh, okay, become aware of the tunnels. Some of the tunnels went through mountains, you know. And so, like I said, it was amazing to do the trip across the country. I mean, you were driving. One of the things that I had noticed, traveling across the country, when you're driving, everything is still, like, so you're all moving, but everything else is like not moving. And so that sensation of looking at the world was like, oh wow, like, you know, um, when you're the only thing really that's moving. Um, and yeah, I've been very much in awe of like this, this, like, how, what we're calling portal jumping or timeline jumping, um, because I mean, it is an experience, to feel. Um, One of the things that I had gotten, especially traveling to California, because California also has, like, once you go through, because we had gone through don't know, New Mexico. We went through Nevada, and so there's like a lot of mountains, you know. And so when you get to California, there's like a lot of mountain views and the sky. Even the skies were different colors wise. And so what we had found was like a lot of the mountains were alive, like, you know, and they talked. So in turn, and they didn't talk, you know. So when we were traveling and we would pass through in areas where there were big mountains, I could feel their energy. I could feel, you know, some of them had a lot to say and or show, which was like, it was a lot of imagery in the traveling. So so that was one of the like the biggest experiences. I remember one time we had parked at this gas station, and and it was like, okay, so we're gonna sleep for a couple of hours because it was the middle of the night. We're gonna sleep for a couple of hours, and then but then we were facing this mountain, and so both Jeff and I are sleeping and having the weirdest dreams of this mountain, like literally like shifting shapes and showing us all these different things. And no, we're not tripping, we're not taking any substances, nothing, you know, just like, but the whole trip was a trip. So, you know, so it was like, and then so he gets up, I get up, and then I'm like, you know, so Jeff is like, you know, I had the weirdest dream. I said, yeah, I had the weirdest dream. And then we start explaining to each other, like, what? And then we're like, yes, this mountain is just like shifting shape and showing us stuff. And like, you know, but talking, but not talking, but we got it. And like I said, what I had found was that as you traveled, you were basically collecting your memories, you know, recollecting memories, recollecting information that you left. So it wasn't a strange information that I was getting. It was like stuff that I knew, stuff that I had, and I left. Uh, so I don't know if it was me or, you know, ancestor, like whatever, you know. And as I was traveling, I was able to gain all this knowledge and information just from the communion with these beings that were the mountains and the trees and the because I remember getting into Grand Canyon, and the forest there was just like crazy. Because and I literally like got hives because the smell was so strong. I'm like, how can these people, like, they don't realize like they're getting high off this, because the trees was spewing all of this stuff, you know. And even like when I was traveling, you know, because we travel at night, and you can actually, you know, because the car's moving, and you can see if you look at the trees, they were extended into heaven. It was like, you know, I don't know if you can hear me, or it says on internet unstable. I have rain. Um, but anyway, the trees were extending into heaven, meaning like I could just see, like, you know, that communication line going up, you know. Um, and so then you realize, oh, like even if you're one tree here, you can communicate with trees all over the universe. And that was like beautiful, and to actually also partake in that, because, you know, I could feel that and see that, and they were sharing all of that with me. The mountains did, the trees did. Like it was like funny to travel that, you know, those routes and experience. So, so my only thing is like, you know, you always want to be in the awareness and not be like hypnotized by the dream that, you know, and and so even though like you know, this journey is sometimes gets scary, you know what I mean? I still want to be aware, you know, I still want to be awake, you know, to it. So
And so going back to what you said, it's like, oh man, I'm resonating with all of this because, you know, when I left Illinois, it was like, bye, I'm out. And I felt this freeing energy, you know. And I was going over the bridge because, you know, leave Illinois, you go over this bridge because it's the Mississippi. It's this bridge, you know, this long bridge. And then, but when I got back last night, you know, I was actually going into darkness. Like it was getting darker. So I was entering about 7 o'clock. It's interesting because in Texas at 9 o'clock at night, it's still light outside, you know. At 7 o'clock, you know, in Illinois, it gets real dark, you know, and that's because we have like a earlier rising, like at like 5:30 or whatever. And the sunshine in Texas like starts at like 7 a.m. or something like that. So I've noticed that, but when I came back here last night, it was raining all day yesterday. So the moon was doing its thing. I'm going through all these states and it's raining through each state I'm going through. So I'm like, okay, you know, strong Pisces energy, just, you know, flooding everything, you know, and really having us sit with the emotion, you know, the moon. And as I'm entering Illinois, the bridge, it feels like I'm entering a mouth or a womb of some sort. As I was entering the bridge, I'm like, whoa. And then there was construction, you know, it was like this turbulence, you know, of construction, like literally I couldn't even see, you know, like, you know, the side of the road where it's like bumpy, like it kind of makes that sound.
Yeah.
I was riding that for about 3-4 miles.
No, that's long.
You know, because that's how close the construction wall was to the lane. So with the glare of, they didn't have any lights going, and I didn't want to put my brights on, and it was raining hard. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got to drive through this, and I'm like, oh, I just feel the turbulence coming back here, you know? And I'm like, you know, okay, I'm entering something. And so that happened for a while, about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. And then finally, it gets a lot more freeing, more flow, more spread out. And I'm getting more tired and more tired and more tired as I'm going along on the journey. And I'm getting more epiphanies and more downloads about also my metaphysical travels. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm thinking about this and more things are happening. And it was just very, very interesting. And I said, yeah, this is, you know, this is just really a really, really interesting experience. And so, yeah, just realizing more, me being conscious and aware more that I'm really, really tied to my higher self. And that although I didn't notice that I was going through different portals, it was already aware of me going through these portals, and they were necessary to get to other portals. Yeah. That also I'm entering as well. So it's a very, very interesting experience how travel is associated with portal jumping. I mean, and portal entering and timeline jumping, you know, because I definitely was going through different timelines, and it was strange. I'm not gonna lie, it was strange a bit. It was strange.
Strangely, I would definitely describe it as strange. You know, especially since I think the sensations, you know, like I said, it's like a more of a feeling, the sensation of like, you know, hey, this is different from here. This is here. There is different from there, and you can feel the space versus like, you know, hey, I'm seeing this, you know, image, you know, and that's how I know, you know, with the feeling more like, you know, I've changed spaces, and yeah, so like I said, very, very interesting to go through this. And in a time, like, you know, when you go through them, like some of them are like you just become lighter. Like that's how I felt, you know. And then whatever I had felt like, okay, you know, whatever worry that I you know, I had before, I don't have. Not to say that I'm not gonna have new worries. That's the thing. And so I understand that now. I don't fall for that, you know, anymore, because I know life comes with all the ups and downs at different times for reasons. You know, sometimes are hard for reasons as well, because you know, it's not about having good times all the time. You know, it's a balance of both. So no, definitely feeling the space and just, you know, giving thanks. I mean, there was one point, like, through my practices, I'm able to connect with even my lower self, which is not a negative thing or a bad thing or anything. Just the different parts of you. And I had, and it was so funny, like we were in the near the water. So she had gone under, and, so it was, it's actually, I think, beautiful to be in the space and then know that parts of you is also in the space. You know what I mean? So as I was visiting, so was myself, be like, oh, okay, yeah. Um, and and I'm sure like they or me is learning at different levels, all of these different from all the different spaces. And that's one of the things, as the awakening for me becomes more and more conscious, that I'm like, I become aware of, oh, okay, yeah, when I'm in a space, it's not just me learning. It's, meaning in terms of like, this Wishbe, there's like, different parts of Wishbe learning different things, because that's what also is communicating. um and I'm trusting that that's what's able to see. I mean, my only thing, that when I came forward last week, and I felt sadness, and a little bit depressed, because it was like, as I become more and more aware of this, it's like, then I'm like, is it a lonely journey? Like, do we only journey? That's the other question. Do we have to journey alone? Because I know, like, when I'm doing these portal jumps, and that it's me, just me, for as much as I want to take my son with me, and and he has his awareness need to be there, like, because all of our awareness are where we are, and there's nothing wrong with either or. So like, having to go through the space, and it's like, and being quote unquote afraid of like leaving anyone behind. It was like, I was really sad, and I remember, and I was like literally in tears. I felt, because I knew the change, I saw the change, I accepted the change, but it was still sad, because I knew there were some people that would not come with me, and that's fine, but knowing something and going through it are two different things, and so, like, I'm definitely, teaching my son so that he's aware, so that he's aware of the awareness of the, or I should say he's conscious of the awareness. Um, but however, we're still in two different spaces, as we are from everyone, from everyone else. So yeah, it was pretty sad. And, I was like, I get, and then there's not many people to talk to. that's the other, that's the other weird thing. It's not that many people that understand or like know what the hell you're talking about, and can't even begin to fathom, like, hey, when they talk about, like, we watch movies all the time about time travel, or we watch movies all the time about, going back to the future, going back to the past, and to actually get that, hey, we do this all the time. It's not, and to experience is like, oh wow, like, and sometimes like people try to explain to you like what an experience is. So don't let even what I'm explaining color your own experience, because we all experience things from our point of view, from our awareness and consciousness. So um so like I said, so that whole thought process was in my mind, and it really made me very sad, to be aware. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so lonely. And of course, it's like, hey, like, and just this lethargic feeling of like, well, what do I do now with all this stuff? It's like, I can't talk to nobody. So it gets
Yeah, yeah, it gets pretty intense, you know what I mean? Like even now for myself, I'm like, who do I talk to about this? Like, who can I talk to about this? Because I can't even explain what I was just saying, and it was just a completely different experience from the last time, and just blew my mind away. And I come back here and I'm like, I have a completely different perception of reality, even stronger than it was last time. But it was just, I have a completely different understanding of my place, my role, and my connection to everything and how deep it is. And that's one thing. It's like, wow, it's just kind of a lot to unpack, about everything. And then even seeing it in the reality too, like the hijacking that also takes place between everything, like the sense and the perception of that has been a lot stronger, of seeing the hijacking of feelings, emotions, you wanting to do something and you don't because somebody else wants you to do something, or you see how strong it is of people knocking you off your path, and it's like, wait a second, I know what this is. Hijacking. And yeah, it's just been intense, like the rate to which I see things more blatantly now, more clearer now, with just a new set of eyes, and deeply feeling beyond my body, a lot more.
Yeah, because of my concentration on learning and about the body, it's so weird. It's like, the body itself, like one of my things, like, the body, you come into the body, right? And however, to integrate into the body, you sort of have to become the body,
Mm.
then you slowly move back or forward or whatever to separate from the body. So it's like,
Yeah.
after becoming the body and merging fully, now to unmerge is strange. The body starts to panic, and that's you panicking because you're thinking you're moving away from yourself, when in actuality you're moving to yourself. So it's like a weird, feeling. And the more I learn about the body, and the more I use and practice, and it was funny. Like, if I'm writing my first article for my blog, and it's like, so I wrote it about hair, because I know, we always have this conversation. I always end up talking about my hair with people, and it's always, okay, hey, I do, here's this practice that I do with the hair. And so, I want to talk about it. And then, of course, like, as you do an article, you go into the research. So my article is not as deep as the research that I went into. So, but then I got lost in the research of it, because the science can really get you, because the science of it is like amazing. And then once you start looking at the structure of hair, and hair has cycles, and just like everything else has cycles, like, so it was like really interesting to see how mechanical the body is. It's like, and then here I am, I'm talking like, what, this damn thing is like the robot. I mean, I know everybody is like afraid, everybody, sorry, like is like afraid of like AI and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like weird to actually see this being, as I learn more and more about it, and then use it, and feel it, integrate with it, and disengage from it, and still be a part of it. It's like, it's all an experience. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful experience. At the same time, it's very disturbing, as because the perception is just like, what the hell do you perceive? Like, um, because sometimes so yes, I want to move away, but then sometimes I really want to attach to it. Talk about Tiara had talked about our attachments to our children, but one of our greatest attachment is actually attachment to this body. you know
Yes.
and so it becomes like this thing where, like, for as much as we like, want to disengage from it, we also enslaved to it. It's like, all like, it's like a lover.
Yeah.
It's like a lover that's like mistreating you, but at the same time you can't get enough. It's like sweet love. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I mean, it's been definitely a journey for me, in multiple ways, in multiple perceptions. So yeah, Tiara said her service is going in and out. Yeah, so that's okay, Tiara, because we're also about to end, because both Paige and I have another meeting.
Yes. So
Yeah.
this has been just a good talk, and thank you both for being here. We got to have a part two because I have the comment on that too about like the dreams, like what you're talking about, the real crazy dreams. So yeah, like just so much stuff has been happening. So yeah, I'm excited for part two.
Mhm. All right. So yeah, so we're gonna say wholeness, everybody. Oh yeah, so Tiara says it's important to teach our children early about stillness and mindfulness. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You know, yeah, I try to teach Bradley right now all of this stuff so that he's not going into it blindly or new. It's not new when you know, when he's like when somebody's talking consciousness or awakening or anything like that. He at least understand half of what's being said, at his perception level. So, try not to push too hard, but at the same time, definitely make him aware, of all this stuff. So, all right, and we've got 2 minutes to go to the next meeting. Wholeness.
Wholeness, ladies, much love.
So Tiara said yes, because they are alone with their thoughts.
Oh, I was saying, did she drop off? I was trying to text too, and I'm driving. But yeah, that's what I was saying. It is definitely like a lonely road, and I think that's the importance of teaching them stillness and meditation and mindfulness when they're young, just to get them to sit there and just be still and to, I don't want to say in a sense enjoy their own company, but learn how to be alone.
Nice.
Learn how to be alone with only your thoughts, where you can block out everything else, because at some point it won't be you blocking out everything else. Everything else will just not have a place at that point. And so during that time, you need to know how to function.
Nice. Very good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right. So
I'm dropping.
our time is up. So I'll say wholeness, and then yes, we can actually definitely put topic on. So wholeness, everybody.
Wholeness.